Okay, it looks like my screen is sharing properly, so we will launch right in there. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this live stream. I am looking forward to chatting with you all today. Today, I am going to be talking about a project that I've kind of had in the works for quite a bit of time. I'm going to be talking about my 17th century inspired capsule wardrobe and how that is progressing. So if you are a beginner or old hat sewist like myself, there really comes a time when you need to sit down and do the thing. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So welcome, Amaris. Hello, Marie. I hope you guys are having a great day. And one of the reasons why, we want to do this planning process, especially folks like myself who have ADHD, it can really help us head off problems and errors in the future that might cause us to just toss the sewing project into the punishment pile and never really go back to it. So planning is really critical when it comes to sewing, especially if you are new. But how do you plan a sewing project? And I thought that I would just kind of walk you through my process. This is not the only way to do things. It is just one of the ways that I kind of approach a sewing project. Okay, so we're just gonna hop right in there. Today I'm going to be talking about planning a cardigan that I have sort of had in the back of my brain for a while, and this is going to be the first piece to my 17th century inspired capsule wardrobe that I'm going to be working on this year. I did several videos on this project over this last year, and I will link to the playlist in the description below. Last year I asked all of you guys to vote on which century should I use as an inspiration for my first capsule wardrobe that I'm going to be working through here on this channel, and you voted for the 17th century, which is a lot of fun because I didn't have a lot of experience or knowledge in the 17th century clothing. So it's been really enjoyable to kind of explore that realm. And I was really delighted to find a whole genre of sweaters, silk sweaters, that were worn as casual attire in the home, and they're really lovely. And so I thought that as a first project, this would be a great anchor for the capsule wardrobe. Good morning, Barbara. I hope you are feeling better. Okay, so when it comes to planning your wardrobe, one way that I approach it is kind of going through the different steps. And for planning a garment, what did I do with my pencil? Basically we go from idea to design, and then we do patterning. I need to change my pen. Thought I had this all set up before. Apparently not. And then patterning, doing the mock-up or the toile, working on the final pattern, and figuring out your fabrics and notions, and then doing the construction. So those are, for me, the major steps in how to kind of go through the flow of doing, going from idea to finished project. And so let's talk a little bit about those different steps. I'm going to erase this so that I can come back to it. So for this project, I am adapting designs from the 17th century sweaters that I have found in various museums around the world. And they've been a lot of fun to work with. Let me pop over here. So these are an example of two different sweaters that I found. The first one is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the lower one is in the Victoria Albert Museum. And so we can kind of use these to guide us on how I'm going to develop my cardigan. You know, you can kind of see that the sweaters have fairly simple lines on almost all of them. You know, it was sort of this straight, there was the two front panels, there would be the two sleeves, and then there would be the back panels. So it's a pretty simple garment. I really like this one here because you can kind of see these side pieces were put in later, probably to accommodate getting older, acquiring some shall we say, mass. And so, like I said, these sweaters are fairly simple. They're almost always made out of silk. The pattern is generally woven in. Excuse me. Generally, the pattern, I mean, is knitted in, but some of them had some really lovely embroidery over the patterns. So let's just check the comments real quick. Amaris was talking about making small sewing kits for her first time teaching sewing classes. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's very sweet of you to say. I very much appreciate that. Okay, so when we're looking at these sweaters, I'm not a knitter. I wish I was a knitter. I am not a knitter. So I'm going to be using upcycled knit fabrics of garments that I've either thrifted or I just don't wear anymore. And I'll show you a little bit about those fabrics here in a bit. But when it comes to these sweaters, they're pretty simple, which is awesome. It makes it much easier to pattern for them. So basically, you know, you got your two front pieces, you got your one back piece, and you have two sleeves. It's, like I said, fairly simple for patterning. There's not a lot of, like, there's no intricate curving. And this simple patterning is great for showing off a very intricate design. You don't want to try to do an intricate design on top of an intricate pattern, especially when you're kind of new and learning. I've never done the technique that I'm going to be using for this project, and so I want to make sure that I'm starting with a simple pattern. So when we're looking at the historical garments, we get a really good idea of what we should be doing. And this is a capsule wardrobe inspired by 17th century. I'm not attempting to be historically accurate, but I'm pulling some of those fun things in from the historical pieces, like the pretty floral designs, and I'm considering doing some handmade buttons for the garment. So what I'm going to be doing for this project is, why is that starting? Oh, okay, we're going to go back to that. I'm going to be, there we go. That's the right, that's the right link. I'm going to be using Alabama Shannon's applique technique for creating the design for this garment. I want to kind of pull in here so you can see there is the reverse applique. She uses a spray air spray paint for it. I don't have that air sprayer, so I will be stenciling. I have some lovely gold screen printing paint that will be perfect for this garment. But you know, looking at how her applique goes to work is really intriguing. They're theoretically washable. All of the fabrics that I'm going to be using in this, like I said, they're all upcycled. And I don't have a lot of really fussy garments. If it can't be thrown into the washer, I really don't have much use of a garment unless they're really cool vintage wools. Vintage woolens, I will take the time to go get them dry cleaned or hand wash them. But this is kind of the process that I'm going to be using for this. This is another really pretty one. So as I'm doing the technique and kind of learning the technique, I'm planning on making myself a little tank top like this, just to practice the technique before I go into creating the actual cardigan. I just don't want to mess it up when I go in there. So the next thing that we need to think about is the pattern. Even though it's a real simple pattern, I'm going to start with a commercial pattern and kind of go from there just to save myself some time. So I've been looking around for a simple cardigan, and that that's a downloadable digital file that I can print off it here at home and adapt and change as I need. So let's go back to the comments and see what we got going on. So yay, Kathleen, I am very glad that you are able to be here too. Tech is fun and awesome until it's not. So welcome, and I'm glad you could make it. So some of the patterns that I did find were some of these sweaters, and if we look at the line drawings on them, this is a cardigan, and if I was to use this one, I would kind of give it a little bit more shape to kind of mirror what was going on in the extant garments and just to make it a little bit more flattering. But I'm really considering getting this pattern so that I can do some fun sort of grandpa sweaters out of recycled and upcycled knit garments that I just don't wear anymore. So I think that would be kind of fun because I do love me a good grandpa sweater. The next pattern that I was looking at was this one. And this is really perfect. All of the other cardigan patterns that I found have a V-neck, and some of the sweaters from the 17th century had them, but I kind of wanted the rounded neck here. Unfortunately, on this website, when I try to purchase this pattern, it goes to a 404 error, so the page doesn't exist. I've reached out to the owner of the website, so hopefully they get it fixed so I can purchase this cardigan fairly soon. If not, I'll probably go with one of the other cardigans. This is another cardigan that I was looking at. It's pretty much the shape I want. The arms aren't too tight. In the extant garments, the arms tended to be a little bit wider. Excuse me. Talking so long for these videos, my I start to get a little bit of tickle in my throat. So this one, I really like this pattern, and this one might be the one that I purchase, but I will need to adjust the neckline. But I really like this one. It's simple. It has the button front placket that I will be able to use. Let's see, what was the other one? So this is a free cardigan that you can download the pattern from. It doesn't have the buttons. It does have that front placket that you can adapt, but if you're looking for a free pattern, I'll make sure that the link to this pattern is in the description below. So I'm most likely going to get this one here off of Etsy if the other website doesn't get fixed in the next couple of days, because I'm going to start moving forward on this project. Okay, so for this one, I will need to basically all I'll need to do is change that neckline, and that's a fairly easy thing to do. I'll just pick a garment that already has the curve of the neckline that I like and just lay it over the pattern and then redraw it. It'll be really simple to use this particular pattern and just adapt it if the other one is not available in the next few days. So when I'm looking at the fabrics that I want to use for this, I have a number of options, and most of them, well, no, I'd say about half of them are knit tops that I no longer wear, and the other half are thrifted pieces. Eventually I'm going to come up with several different designs, and I'm going to have you guys vote on which one I do, so you can help me make that decision. But the first thing that I have is these two. Apparently I like green heathered fabrics. I'm not sure how well the camera will pick up the colors, but it's kind of this green heathered. It's a big cowl neck top, and I have two different like I said, apparently I really liked at one point this green heather, but I have a lot of this fabric, and it's close enough. It's not perfectly the same, but you know, it's close enough that I think it'll work. Excuse me while I bend over because my fabrics have fallen down. So, and then I have this one here. Again, it's marbled. However, this one is just a print pattern. It's not actually knitted in. So it's a pink color. And so I think these will be kind of fun together. Kind of a nice, lovely muted. And then I have a sort of a dark metallic gold screen printing ink that I can use to do the stenciling, which helps to seal the edges of the applique. But then I just have some other fun fabrics that I might try to incorporate into it. One of them is, this is a woven, so I'm not really sure how well I will be able to use it, but maybe for a top underneath. Like a tank top or something like that underneath. And then I have this lovely stretch velvet. Maybe that'll be a nice tank top underneath. And I also have some old, sort of old beigey lace that I can play with. And I have a tank top that has some lace that I can kind of play with. So between all of those fabrics, I will come up with some different designs, and you can help me pick which ones that I go on to sew. Let's see, let's go on to the next thing. So when I do the, one thing I want to go back to, I also plan on doing vintage buttons, you know, appropriate buttons for this garment. And this is a garment that was conserved. It's in the Scottish Museum. And you can see that these beads are made of cord. This was really common. Oftentimes it was made over a wooden bead, or in this case it's just tightly packed fabric. It's probably some of the same fabric that the garment was made out of. Just you cut a circle and then you baste around the edges, you pull the circle tight, and it forms a little ball, and then you form this pattern of stitches over that core. And then this one here has these cords, and I think that this might be a fun way of creating that front closure. They didn't seem to have like our modern placket, so I'm going to play around with either having the center front butt up or having an overlapped placket, which is a more modern version. But I really like the way that this garment closes. I will link to the article that this is from. It's really an interesting article, and I really love the pattern. So the pattern is made of this wool cord. It looks like it's very, very loosely spun. And it's just couched down. And then these little balls of the wool really help to create a texture that I'm just totally digging. And if I play my cards right, I might be able to do something similar for the cardigan. So I was going to break for just a second to see if there was any questions that people have. Feel free to put those in the chat, and I will get to them. So the next thing after I have appliqued my fabric, I will actually go to making the garment. And we start by, of course, always doing the mock-up, sometimes called a toile. I'm going to be using recycled knit fabric. Probably that first one will be a throwaway garment that ends up just being cleaning rags or something like that. So I'm not going to be worried about the quality of the fabric. I just want to make sure the fit of the garment is going to be okay. And then the second toile that I make, to make sure that I really capture the right patterning, I want to make into a wearable garment that I can just kind of wear around the house, and it'll just be a simple thing. When I am doing my patterning and I'm going through the various mock-ups, the mock-ups will probably be done in a fairly stretchy fabric, whereas the finished applique fabric won't have as much stretch as a regular jersey does. So that's something that I'm going to need to make sure I kind of keep in the back of my mind as I'm constructing that pattern. So once I have the pattern finished, that's when I am going to do the applique. And I have a couple of different sort of concepts for the sweaters that I'm thinking about. And so what I did was I took images of the extant garments, and I basically just traced using Procreate. I love Procreate. I am just obsessed. And so once I have these patterns figured out, I can kind of play with placement. So here's one possibility. I really like this one. It's kind of a geometric design pattern to it. It really reminds me of some of the Venetian silks with the pattern. Well, looking at looking at the picture and then looking at my backdrop here, which is some curtains, you can kind of see that diagonal diamond shape in both of those textiles. a lot of the sweaters had sort of an interest band around the waist. Sometimes that was just a knitted design that kind of give you a little bit of interest over the waist. Sometimes it was, re-embroidered. So there was a lot of different ways that that waist could be called out. This is one of my pet peeves with modern sweaters is that they're just bags. They got a neck hole, they got an armhole, and they got a hole for your body to go in, and then they're just bags. I wish we could get more sweaters that had better shape. So the other pattern that I'm looking at is this one. It's more of a floral vine. The garment that I pulled this one from had this really interesting tone-on-tone knitted pattern along the hem of the lower part of the garment and then along the lower cuff of the sleeve. And so that's a possibility. And then that garment had a darker band on that front opening and then around the neck. And then the third option is this one. It just sort of had a field of designs, a floral design, and I'm going to have a contrasting band around my waist. There was this really interesting chain design as part of the shoulder, and I thought that that was kind of cool. So those are sort of the three working options. If I can get there we go, my screen go smaller. So those are my three working options for designs. And what I'll do is sit down with my fabrics and kind of work them up into a colorized version. And then I will have a poll, probably either in my YouTube community or over on my Ko-fi page. I haven't decided yet, maybe both places. But be looking for that poll so that you can help me decide which one of these to make. And then after I get the design figured out, it's a matter of, transferring this to the garment. And I plan on making stencils. I'll use my Cricut to cut out the plastic stencils and then come in and just basically stencil using, the daubing brush, and then doing the reverse applique, and then coming back and doing some embroidery. There's this garment here, which I really liked, had this wonderful embroidery all over the finished garment, and then it had couched cording in this lovely sort of swirly design. So I'm a big fan of these sort of bombastic floral designs like this one. I think that I could have a lot of fun with that, and with the floral designs and couch designs, and then kind of thinking back to that other white garment in the Scottish Museum. That was really cool. So there'll be some sort of mishmash of all of these different techniques. And so I will do the applique before I before I cut out the fabric, because as I applique, the fabric's going to shrink in a little bit, and I don't want to have the garment end up being too small because I cut the fabric and then appliqued. So when I actually go to make the garment, I will baste in thread around where the pattern piece should be, and then have the pattern extend a little bit past where those seam lines lay, so that I can accommodate for shrinkage during the applique process. And then once I have the applique done, then I can cut it out and I can sew it. I haven't decided if I want to line this yet. I kind of want it to be able to, be washed. So I will probably end up binding the seams in some way, either using bias fabric or knit jersey binding. to be determined on that one. Sometimes you can get a lovely effect if you bind the inside seams with a contrasting color, so that if you got like the green fabric on the inside, I can have the lovely, maroon or something like that binding, and it just gives it a lovely finish. I'm looking at doing the Hong Kong finish on the seams, which just gives a lovely tailored look to unlined garments. So look up Hong Kong seam finishing. So my goal, when I'm looking at the timeline for this, my goal is to have this done by the end of February. We'll see how that goes. I have some travel for work, my day job coming up, so that kind of cuts into my sewing time. But my goal is to have this completed by the end of February, and then do a reveal video after that. And I'm going to be posting progress pics over on my Ko-fi page, on Instagram and Facebook, on the community tabs, basically everywhere. So I wanted to let you know that this planner page, I'll put this planner page, a link to it in the description, so that you can download that if you're interested in this page. I pulled some 17th century woodcuts from some old books and made this design, so if people wanted to pull this into their devices and use that to do their planning on, they can go ahead and use that. So, what does planning look like for me? So when I'm approaching these planner pages, I kind of just give a description, a cardigan, 17th century, upcycled. I would do it much neater in the actual planner page. So just kind of a description of what this is. Here I might say due end of February, knowing that that's a good goal. We'll see how that turns out. And here I might, add in reverse applique. Made buttons, inside seam Hong Kong finish. This is just a messy version of what I normally do. And then I would kind of think about, when I can do this, like week 1, draft first, and then week 2, final design, and then week 3, draft pattern, week 4, mock-up, week 5, final pattern, and then week 6, make. And these are just kind of guidelines. You really need to take into consideration, how much time do you have to sew. For myself, it's, a couple hours maybe in the evening and then on the weekends. But, I have other things that I want to do. I have videos to make. So, it's kind of the conundrum. Am I going to sew or am I going to work on videos? We'll see how long it actually takes. I have learned that sometimes it's best to have a deadline, but sometimes deadlines impose a lot of anxiety, and so you kind of have to work with how your own brain works. If you like deadlines, go ahead and give yourself one. I'm just saying end of February is my goal, and you can kind of see I got a little bit of time in the schedule because for the inevitable days where I just really don't wanna. We all have days like that. Okay, make sure I've gone through my notes and made sure I've covered everything. Yeah, So I think that, we're over a little over half an hour, so I want to kind of wrap this up and see if anyone has any questions. As always, feel free to uh, continue the conversation in the comments below. I'm going to be putting the links to the resources that I showed you today, and be looking for a video on the 17th century sweaters. I don't think that it's my next video out, but it might be. I'll have to double check that. I really love diving into the history of these sweaters. It was pretty awesome. Let's see, what next? Oh yeah, so um, you can always find these updates either over on Instagram, on my Ko-fi page, or in the community tab. So there's a lot of different ways that you can find this information. The download will be over on my Ko-fi page, or it'll be on my website where you can download it for free. I will have all of those links in the description below, and I will also link to the playlist for the 17th century capsule wardrobe. So I don't see any questions here in the chat. Feel free to, if something occurs to you later, I will be monitoring these chats once it goes live, and I will see you at some point in the future. You guys all have a lovely day.